Welcome to another episode of the Make Mental Health Matters show. I am your host, Kelli Melissa Reinhardt. You know, figuring out this in-studio thing every single time I have a guest. Sometimes the microphones work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the headphones do, sometimes they don't. But I hope that as you watch the show, you are having a good time having all of the in-person shows, because it's just so much more fun to have a connection with my guests and be able to bring them in studio even through the hiccups, because again, the show is all about just getting the information out, showing resources, whether it is people, nonprofits, or companies, those that have experience or a story to share, and bringing that to you as the audience member. Because in today's society, we oftentimes, or some people oftentimes, feel like they're really alone and they're not exactly sure where to go, who to talk to, how they can help somebody or somebody could help them. And that is really the whole point of the show, is to bring you those resources, which is brings me to my guest for today, because Stacey has some amazing resources that she also offers to the community, but I'm going to give her a chance to share a little bit about her story specifically. So without further ado, because we've had quite a few technical difficulties today, I will let you share your story with the audience, a little bit more about yourself and your journey, and then kind of what you do now.
Awesome. Kelli, thanks for having me. And I don't think me being involved in something without technology issues would be possible. So I think I bring it. So thanks again for having me. I born and raised right here in Colorado. So I grew up with my mom and dad and my two sisters. And in terms of my mental health journey, and it started in my 20s. So mental health issues run in my family. Yay! And it really started, my dad was bipolar. And so he died when I was 28. And so some grief and a lot of stuff that happened with the family led to some depression and anxiety. I didn't realize the severity of it until I realized that I was not dealing with the grief of my dad's passing. Like wave of grief, I'm going to go around it. I'm not going to go through it. And of course it's fine because I wasn't feeling sad anymore. Until kind of fast forward 3 or 4 years, and my mental health took a nosedive because I wasn't dealing well with it. And the tipping point for me was the end of a relationship. And I think I cared more than the other person did. And so that was just the tipping point. And at the time, I was a florist, and I woke up on a Wednesday morning right before Mother's Day, which is the busiest holiday, side note, for florists besides next to any other, including Valentine's Day. And I woke up that morning and couldn't stop crying. I cried all day, and I'm trying to figure out all of our orders and all the things. And at some point during the day, I'm like, I can't do this. And so I called my doctor and said, here's the situation. And the nurse said, she can't see you today necessarily. I said, well, I'm going to have to go to the hospital. And she said, okay, come on in. You'll sit with me until she can see you. And that was the beginning of what I call my own breakdown. And 5 years of intensive therapy, lots of meds that were not done properly, and really diving into the issues and the depression. And it was a solid 5 years. I lost a ton of weight. I eventually closed my business because I couldn't run it properly, and the economy was a little not great. And what I found was that as I went through my treatment and my therapy with a really great therapist, it was really the first time that I got to focus on my needs and who I am. And throughout the course of those 5 years, I was suicidal. And here's something that you don't realize unless you're in it. When the medications don't work and they're prescribing something else, they don't ask you for what's left of the old meds. I could have probably swallowed enough pills to kill myself a couple of times. And at my lowest point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I couldn't eat. I had a roommate from hell, who was not compassionate. And I was so low, and I'm like, I'm going to take the pills. And fortunately, I had a doctor who gave me her phone number, her personal phone number. And so I called her, and she's like, okay, we're going to fix it. We're going to try something else. And I got better meds. And I reached out because I pictured my mom and my sisters at my funeral. And I'm like, that can't happen. So the worst of it was the 5 years. And so I was 38 years old when I kind of came out of my massive depression and insecurities and worrying that I wasn't good enough and all the things that go with depression. And as I came out of that, I decided I needed to share my story. And ironically, I found this because the timing was really weird. I was going through some stuff. My mom passed away in September. And so I was going through some things, and I found a note card. I had spoken to a group of high schoolers way back in the day and saved the thank you note. And I touched a chord with those kids, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this has been my path for a long time. So that's, I've been in and out of therapy ever since I was 33 years old. I go back when I need to. I pay attention to the depression because I'm very worried if I go that deep again, I won't come out. Wow. And I'm so grateful that I'm here. The thing that I knew so my oldest nephew was born in the midst of my massive depression. And at the time I was overweight and I had really big hair because that was the time. And a friend of mine ran into me at a baseball game, and he called my mom. He's like, what's wrong with Stacey? Because my eyes were a little glassy. I was over-medicated and not the right way. Wow. And then I held my nephew, my very first nephew or niece, and held him, and I'm like, oh, this is what I stuck around for. And I'm a great aunt now. Like, not a great aunt. I'm a really good aunt of 4. And those 4 people, I'm like, okay, hope, light at the end of the tunnel, whatever you want to call it. That's what gave me hope. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to see these kids grow up. And now he's graduating college. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, thank you for sharing, first and foremost. And there were so many... so a lot of questions always pop into my head. But there were some important things that you said, which I want to kind of key in on a little bit, is medication.
Yeah.
And I actually haven't ever thought of that before, is that when they change you to another medication, they don't ask you for that medication back. And a lot of antidepressants cause people to be suicidal. Mm-hmm. So that's could probably be a whole different conversation in itself.
Yeah, it really could, because at one point I had like 3 or 4 different bottles of medication in my cupboard or in my medicine cabinet. I'm like, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So if anybody in the healthcare professional is listening, make sure if you're helping somebody that might be actively suicidal, ask for their medication back. I don't know if they can actually do that, but I would assume that they can. So
yeah, they can at least ask what's in your cabinet still. I think that's part of talking about how much thought you've put into the act of suicide and how deep your plan is. So, yeah.
Well, and I think, just what you experienced, right? Like going through the depression and really feeling bottom of the bottom, and luckily you found therapy and a doctor that listened and gave you their personal information, which does not happen very often.
No. And she and I had a great working relationship. So she was my doctor for many, many years. And I was very sad when she retired. I have a great doctor now, but she was one that I credit with really saving me from having to go to the hospital. and for listening to me. And I knew that I could not do it without help. And that is probably the best phone call I've ever made, was to my doctor.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, once you're in that space, it's almost like blinders. You don't see much beyond. So,
no, and just getting through, we talk about one day at a time and sometimes 1 hour at a time. And it sounds cliche, but sometimes cliches exist for a reason. And it's really, how do I get through the next hour? And as I was sitting in my flower shop crying, I'm like, I need to get through the next hour by talking to someone who can help me stop crying. And so I called my doctor, and she found my therapist. So, and insurance companies back then, those things where referrals were a little different. But there are some great, I think, mental health resources now that are easier to access than I think they were 20 plus years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and an important part of that is you can always start with your doctor, right? Like a general care doctor is generally the one that's been with you for longer than other doctors. So that's a really great place to start even now. But yes, luckily we have access to more resources today. But I think it's important to understand that in those places, it's hard to see who's around you, and being able to just focus on that time, the short time period, which I know they have done a ton of research around too, is that if you can get somebody past the shortened time, especially when they're actively suicidal, then you can truly save a life. So it makes complete sense. And there are cliches for the reasons that they usually work. So.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I am curious. I mean, so now you've so you went through this depression, you started figuring out what was going on with your medication, because being over medicated or just not how it functions. Yeah. Not a lot of people know how to, or even that it's not right.
Yeah, I think I was really in a fog. And I thought it had to do with the depression. And I was seeing a psychiatric nurse to prescribe the medication, and she over-medicated me. And I then went to a psychiatrist, just not for therapy, just to do the meds. And she got it under control. So lowered some medication, took me off one, and it was Depakote that helped a lot, because I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder, which is not the manic. I just get the depression. So I'm like, I had no fun. There was no mania. I don't joke about that lightly, because I lived with that, but with my dad. But the depression and the anxiety. So I was treated for both, and I still deal with anxiety today. Sometimes a lot, and I am taking medication for that ongoing. But the thing is, either you need to be your own advocate, which is hard when you're depressed, or have someone that you trust that can advocate for you. And my friend who called my mom did the biggest favor for me. I was mad at the time, because I'm like, I'm an adult. I don't need some friend calling my mom. But she, she's like, you're not doing well, and you don't look good, and you're not you. And so I called my doctor, we got a psychiatrist, and got on a better path. And so it's hard when you're feeling that way, but it's okay to be your own advocate. It's actually required, and it's empowering as well. So it gives you some ownership over your own treatment, over how you feel. I'm a big proponent of finding the right medication if that's appropriate for you, and finding a therapist that is doing what you need them to do. I have fired a couple of therapists over the years, because they were more like life coaches. I'm like, don't need that. I need to process through this bout of anxiety or whatever it was at the time. And that's empowering, and saying, this is not a good fit. I'm paying you. I need something that's going to work for me.
Yeah. And being able to advocate for yourself and or being an advocate for somebody else. Definitely something that I talk about a lot is because I know personally when or at periods in my life when I use antidepressants, and I was like, well, if these work for my family, maybe they'll work for me. And then they didn't work for me. Like, they made me feel super weird. And I was like, something's not right here.
Right.
But you have to ask, and you have to make sure that they listen, right? Because sometimes they're like, well, it'll take a couple more weeks or blah, 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 whatever the word is, or the time frame that they give. But honestly, if it's not working, it's not working.
Right. And nobody knows your own body better than you. And so, and I do that to this day. I'm like, this is not working. I needed to increase my anxiety meds last year with my mom being sick, and I was just, it was rough. And so I was in touch with my doctor a lot saying, nope, this isn't working. The breakthrough meds to try and help with a panic attack or an almost panic attack just barely took the edge off. So, and we worked at it until we got it right.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, just to have somebody in your back corner that wants to work it out with you. We're going to go to our quick first sponsored break. But once we come back, I had a couple other questions that were popping into my head. So we'll be right back after this quick sponsored break.
Have you ever felt completely alone?
Like your life doesn't matter.
One person dies due to suicide every 40 seconds.
You are not alone. Call the National Suicide Lifeline at 988.
Hope and recovery is possible.
1 in 8 people globally live with a mental disorder.
That's why empowering minds saves lives.
We need your help.
With only $19 a month, you help us save lives through mental health and suicide prevention education.
Scan the QR code or go to makementalhealthmatter.org to sign up as a warrior for mental health today.
Hi, I'm Ann Scotland, the host of Global Socialpreneurs. Join the experts, 12 p.m. EST on the Fresh Takes TV network for the best advice on social entrepreneurship. Join us here on E360 TV.
Hi, Laura Cross, your host for Mindful Mondays, every Monday at 1 p.m. Central Time, where you can embark on a transformative journey of self-care and ultimate happiness. Tune in to the Voyage to Vitality channel on the Achieve TV network. Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. Be there, be mindful, and join us on E360 TV.
And like that, we're back. If you happen to be just joining the Make Mental Health Matter show, make sure you go back and watch the first half of this. But Stacey and I are having an amazing conversation about her journey really through mental health and being diagnosed with bipolar 1. And also just how to be able to advocate for yourself and advocate for others if that is what you need to do. But thank you again for just sharing your journey. Sure. And I know you also mentioned that you got to a place that you knew it was important to share your story.
Yes.
So I know what you do now. But how did you get to that point that you're like, I've been through all these things and now it's time to tell people about it?
I think one of the worst things that people deal with when they're suffering from a mental illness is the isolation and feeling like they're alone and nobody gets it. I think it's over 20 million people suffer from anxiety and or depression. So we are not alone. And what I want to do with my messaging is share that and say, one, there's nothing to be ashamed about. Having a mental illness is no different than having a physical illness. And I have that too. And so it's no different. And actually some of the things that come, I have Parkinson's. And so some of the things that come with that, I'm like, am I shaking too much today? Am I walking too slow? I'm more self-conscious about that, honestly. And the mental illness, I'm like, there's nothing to be ashamed about. And you could share the part of your story that you want to share. I don't share all the gory details of my darkest moments, but I can tell you what that felt like. and talk about getting help. And so at the time I reached out to the Mental Health Center of Denver because they had a speakers bureau. And so I started doing different public speaking engagements with smaller groups, larger groups, high school groups, adults, and just really starting to let people know that there is life with depression. There is joy with depression and anxiety, and you can get through it. And I'm living proof for now more than, math is hard, more than 20 years, 25 years. And I'm so grateful that I did the work because I'm the only one that could do it. So being able to share that message as well, you got to do the work, and make it okay for loved ones. So if it's not you that has depression or anxiety, but someone that you know, all you have to do is show up and say, I'm here. And that's an important message that I share because people don't know what to do. They want to help, and people need to know the right things to say.
Yeah, and I would love that you said that. And thank you for sharing. I didn't realize that you also had a physical Parkinson's challenge. I like the word challenge.
That's a good yes. It's good times. Yeah.
Sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But I do also love that you brought, like the words that we say to ourselves and the words that we say to others. And my thought just totally blinked out where I was going with this. But I think that it's important to get up and share our message. It's important to seek out those places that people really actually want to hear and understand. And I think, this whole show, that's really what it's about is we all have experiences and we've been there, and maybe it's not perfect and there's a lot of dark times, but you can be okay and you can also not be okay. Yeah. And I think that's a great part of the conversation.
I think what society expects of us is the Facebook posts, right? Yeah. And social media. I'm going on this great vacation. Life is perfect. We all know that to not be true, right? We all have a story, and our stories are all important, and they all have a message, whether you share it with a large group of people or just the people who love you. And we have a right to own the story and live a life that we find fulfilling. And not apologize for having a mental illness. And making it, if somebody you love shares with you that they're depressed or anxious or whatever other mental illness they might have, because there's more than those two, your job as their loved one is to say, I'm sorry, how can I help? Mm-hmm. Your job is not to say, you just need more sleep and you'll snap out of it. Those kinds of things. So before you say something to someone who is grieving, who is suffering with a mental illness or even a physical illness, say it in your head a couple of times and ask yourself, how would I feel if someone said that to me?
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because often, okay, I probably shouldn't say always or often, but there are several times, even so through my journey with the loss of my sister, when people say, I'm sorry for your loss, like it kind of triggers me a little bit because I'm like, you didn't do anything, so why are you saying sorry? So the word sorry is, we use that a lot in society today. So what are some things that people, other than you just shared a great example, but what are other, if you're just not sure like what to say to somebody, what would feel okay receiving from somebody else?
So I think about that a lot over the years. And with my mom just passing recently, I've had the opportunity to decide the things that I'm getting from my friends and extended family, what's helpful. And a simple, I'm thinking about you today text or a message or meme or whatever goes a really long way. And it's just that I matter to somebody, and I know that I do, but it's that easy physical reminder. And that's the biggest one. I'm thinking about you today.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely am much more choosy with my words now today. I also love that we don't have to know everything. We don't know we don't have to always have the perfect words.
Right.
We may fumble a little bit at first, but the best part is that we can also just say, hey, I'm not sure how to help you. Or if you ask somebody, how can I help you? And they're not sure, that's okay.
Yeah. And maybe it's you show up with a meal even though they're like, no, I don't need it. They need food.
Yes.
And for people who know me, they know I hate to cook. So, you know, if you show up with a meal or a cup of coffee or a chai or whatever it is, let them know you're coming. Don't just surprise them. Yeah. But, just give them an opportunity to know that someone's going to nurture you, even if it's for an hour.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, there's some really great websites that I found, like mealtrain.com, which I love that website. There's another one of my other friends found that's very similar, but it helps to just, I'm similar also. I don't really like to cook. I will if I need to, but I know, especially like after my sister passed or when I had my kids, right? Like I didn't think about feeding or nourishing myself, but it's part of that process, whatever somebody's going through. We have to go to our quick last sponsored break, but once we get back, I would love for you to share what your nonprofit is all about and what you're doing for the community. So
absolutely,
we are going to go to this quick sponsored break, and then once we get back, Stacey will share that with you. So we'll be right back after this sponsored break.
– 1,917 people die daily from suicide globally.
I lost my middle sister, Carrie, to a completed suicide on February 20th, 2017.
How does Make Mental Health Matter save lives?
Number 1, awareness.
My story, all of it isn't unique. I am a domestic violence survivor. I was in active addiction, and because of Kelli and the work that she does and the opportunity to have my voice heard, I was able to stay clean and sober and have hit a year. I'm still here, and if it wasn't for Kelli answering my call the day that I thought I was going to take my life.
Number 2, conversation.
I'm curious, and I know that I've heard a lot in the BIPOC community. It is very hush-hush. It's like one of those things that you don't talk about. Like you literally feel like it's not a conversation you can have. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
First, shout out to Kelli, because I'm glad that she asked the question. I researched you before I went on your show, and I saw how real and authentic you were. And I just appreciate the question because it is different, and we have to have tough, courageous conversations. So yes, I always say I'm a triple diversity threat. I'm a Black woman with multiple disabilities. Now, I'm not really a threat, but to other people, I may be, because people fear the unknown and what they're uncomfortable with.
Number 3, education.
Kelli's passionate commitment to mental health awareness is a beautiful thing. It's clear in her social media posts, it's clear in the resources that she puts together, in the activities that she provides, her collaboration with organizations, and the consistent way that she continues to deliver a message, encouraging people to understand that they can share openly and to break the stigma around mental health. Kelli's topics cover children and adults, talk about things that we can do as a community, things that we can do individually, And her website is packed with information and resources and all kinds of contacts that you can use to reach out, whether you're dealing with something yourself or you're looking to help somebody else who is struggling. I encourage you to check it out.
And like that, we're back again. If you, again, happen to just be joining the Make Mental Health Matter show, thank you so much for tuning in. But I highly recommend you go back and watch the rest of this. I am chatting with Stacey really about her journey through depression and advocating for herself. And we just had a full conversation about how we can talk to people. Maybe we don't know what to say exactly, but that's okay. You can ask how they need help, or maybe bring a meal, because when somebody is going, whether it's through depression or anxiety, a physical challenge or a mental challenge, or maybe they just had a loss of a family member or a pet or anything really, grief or loss, we often don't know how to take care of ourselves at that point.
Right.
So it's important to ask the question and kind of fill in where you can. So I led into, before we went to that break, just sharing a little bit more information about your nonprofit now. And I do know that you also recently lost your mom. So I am just curious to check in and see how everything's going, but tell a little bit more about the audience, or tell a little bit more about your nonprofit to the audience.
Will do. So my nonprofit that I founded 10 years ago, we just celebrated 10 years, January 31st, is called Elevating Connections. We work specifically with current and former youth in foster care. We help them reunite with their siblings if they've been separated through out-of-home placement, which happens a lot. And we also work with older youth who may have emancipated from the system and need connection and support. And so we have a robust arts program where they can speak their truth and share their story through the arts. And of course, through their journeys, they do struggle with mental health issues. It could be post-traumatic stress disorder from the trauma, could be depression, anxiety, there's a lot that they deal with. And so I try and use my own experience to bring compassion and understanding to their situation while hearing their story and making sure that they get to own their story.
Yeah, I mean, just foster care in general, and you hear about the kids that have gone through the system and all of those, like, bouncing from one to another. And I know that there are some that go right into a very loving home, and but it also, I feel like I hear more of the stories of the, like, bouncing around and not finding the best place. So
there are tremendously wonderful foster homes out there, more good foster homes than not. And a lot of the kids go to family, and sometimes family, they're wonderful, but also they can have some of the same situation that they go in, that they left their parents in. And so I think one of the reasons that kids move around a lot is that we're not paying attention to what their behaviors are telling us. The kids don't know how to express that they've been traumatized to the point that they can't trust adults, or they can't function in school. Their anxiety's too high. And so they lash out, or they express themselves in ways that people don't particularly like. And instead of saying, what is the behavior telling me? It's, I can't have this behavior anymore, and if you don't stop, you have to go. And that's frustrating. And that's sometimes what separates siblings, is if, they sometimes act up together, or a trauma bond, which gets thrown around a lot. And people who've worked with me closely know how I feel about that phrase. Sure, they're bonded by trauma, but they're also bonded by the fact they are brother and sister, and they have shared experiences and shared love. And if you're not treating that trauma bond therapeutically, they're never going to heal. And the sibling relationship is the most important relationship, any of us can have, because it's generally the longest relationship any of us have. And it's our first relationship where we learn how to support each other and make up because we fought and told mom on your sisters or brothers. You gang up on other people together, you form alliances, all the things that come into other relationships we learn from each other as siblings.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing, the work that you do.
Thank you.
And I guess the question that I have, so were you in foster care, or what got you, like, what was that tie into starting this nonprofit?
I was not in foster care. And so I started working at CASA, Arapahoe, for heaven's sake, Advocates for Children, CASA, which are court-appointed special advocates. They're volunteers who advocate for kids in the foster care system. I spent 10 years working there. But right after I started, we went to a CASA conference, and I learned at the alarming rate that siblings are separated from one another, and learned about a summer camp that is offered to kids who have been separated from each other. And from that moment on, I was hooked. So I got involved with the camp. And in 2014, we had a conversation about really needing year-round programming because some of the kids were only seeing each other at camp or a few times a year. I have 2 sisters, and they each have 2 kids, and they married really great men. And I cannot imagine being separated from them for a moment, let alone, for months or years or permanently. And so they're my driving force, and so are my nieces and nephews. My niece and nephew. I have one niece, not.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, I mean, I know for me, I grew up with all girls at first. So I have 2 sisters on my dad's, 2 sisters on my mom, and then my mom and dad had me. Yeah. So 5 girls growing up. And then we have lots of kids. Like everybody has either 2 to 3. So anyways, there's a lot of family, right? Yeah. And so it has been very interesting after the loss of my sister, because you do lose some of that, like just the sibling rivalry. It was more so with her and I. Yeah. But yeah, I couldn't imagine going into a system or another family home and knowing that your siblings are in another home. That would be so hard as a youth.
It is devastating. And I have young adults that we still work with who said, I wish you were around when I was in foster care, because we might not have been separated, because those separations sometimes lead to permanent separation after foster care, because they don't know how to get past the things that happened. And it's so hard to watch. But when the kids come to camp or they come to one of our bi-monthly connecting events, they're super excited to see each other. They probably will fight. They will probably, be irritated with each other. And that's okay, because that's what we all do. But they get to do it where they just get to be kids at a summer camp where there's horseback riding and swimming in a lake and carnival night and all the things. And we're organically letting them make memories. And they walk away thrilled and grateful, and they're so sweet about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we let their teams know and their care providers, hey, here's what we are seeing. Perhaps this information is useful, and you can get the kids either back in the same home or at least more contact. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just being able to observe how they're interacting. And I like to reflect on, so I am NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming. And I was actually just talking to somebody about this, but every behavior has a positive intention.
Yeah.
And thinking about even youth, right? Like I feel like as adults, sometimes we want them to be older than they are.
Yes.
And we don't think that their rational part of their brain is not fully developed.
Right.
And so we respond to them as if they're an adult but they're not yet. And I think that's what we need to remember, especially I know in foster care situations, most of the time they have multiple kids. And if one is behaving badly, they don't want the rest, or, you know, like they don't want them following, and all these different scenarios, of course. But I think that we need to also realize kids need to be kids.
Yes, they do. They need, whether they agree with it or not, they do need boundaries and guidance.
Yes.
But they do just let them be kids. And that's something that I needed to learn. When we first started camp, I'm the executive director. I'm going to be the rule maker, and I needed to lighten up. And I have. And one of the moments that sticks with me is just real quickly. There was a kid. We had a guest speaker that was talking to the kids about her experience in foster care. And so we were out by the river and sitting in the grass, and one kid was off to the side throwing rocks. And he was looking at me, and then he would throw rocks. And so my choice, I had two. I could go over and tell him to sit down and knock it off, or I could ignore, because he wasn't hurting anybody. He was testing his boundaries. He was testing me. And then I became someone that he could trust. And so he sat down when he was ready, and he didn't disturb anybody. And that was me being the adult saying, this is what a kid does. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, I reflect all the time. I have a 9, almost 10-year-old, and I often think about, like, sometimes if I start to get annoyed, and then I'm like, wait, he's just being a kid.
Right.
Let him be a kid.
And if we have that thought, he's just being a kid, sometimes we get to be the kids with them.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I tell the counselors at camp and everyone, you get to do the activities with the kids. So be a kid. Have a little whimsy about you. Like, it's okay. Let loose. We need them to be safe. We need them to follow the rules. But have some fun. Do the art project. Climb the wall. You know, whatever. Get on a horse. And have some fun. Every so often at the lake, I'll go down the slide for one of the swim periods. I'm like, all right, this is your one shot to see me go down the slide. And, you know, one kid asked me if I was going to go swim with them and I'm like, I'm not sure. And I didn't change into my suit, so I just walked in fully clothed into the lake, and I'm like, did you see that? She said,
That's awesome.
Side note, don't do that with jean shorts on.
Don't go into a lake with jeans. Well, we're coming almost to the end, which it goes so fast. But what I would love for you to just share where people can find the nonprofit, maybe tell them like how they can get involved, and then any final thoughts that you might have that are popping up.
So in terms of the nonprofit, it's very easy. elevatingconnections.org is our website. We're on social media. And I'm going to be honest, we are in a tough climate with fundraising. And if you have an extra $25, $100, we would love to have you support us that way. We always need volunteers, but I will be honest, our funding right now is a little challenging. So that would be a great help so we can maintain our programming. And you can donate right from the website. But there's also our events calendar is also on there, so please look and see if there's anything you'd like to be a volunteer at. And then in terms of last thoughts, one of the things that came out of my depression and being able to realize how grateful I was to still be here is there's truly light in every day. Sometimes it's a tiny little sliver because you're like, I don't think so. But it could be that someone sent you a meme that was hilarious, or your Starbucks that day was particularly good. Whatever it is, try and find that, whether it's a little sliver or it's just a big ray of sunshine. I have lived by that for many years, and it helps me through a lot of things. And hope is big. I even got it tattooed on my arm. So, and the final thought is, be kind to yourself. You are worth everything to so many people around you. Be kind to yourself.
Amazing. Well, make sure you go to Elevating Connections with an S.
Yes.
.org. It will also be in the comments here that you can find that link. And I just really appreciate you being my guest for today. You never know the lives that you're going to touch, especially through the program, and knowing that our youth are our future. Yeah. I mean, if we can take care of the youth today and really know how we can make a difference in their lives, we can save our entire future. So just think about that. And I know previously I had a guest who we actually talked about foster care, and she was in foster care. And so it is, I love that a lot of my guests end up kind of flowing into the next. So if you are watching this or tuning in and listening and you didn't get the whole episode, make sure you go back. No matter what you do, make sure you come back next Monday. This airs at 5 p.m. Mountain Time on E360 TV, or 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. all Mountain Time on Dream Vision 7 Radio. And you can simply say, Alexa, play Dream Vision 7 Radio, and you can listen directly there. I hope that you got some information out of this episode, and make sure again that you go check out Stacey's nonprofit. And if you are able to donate, please give whatever you can, because even the smallest amounts go the longest way. And maybe you have a large amount that you can donate, but just think about all the lives that you are saving. You're giving them a place of hope, a place that they can go to that's safe for them, and they get to connect with their siblings. It gives me chills when I say that. So make sure you go check it out at elevatingconnections.org. And I will see you all next week. Have a wonderful week.